But we will meditate first. Okay, this is important because it sets our intention. It brings us to the present moment and allows us to let the rest of the world filter away. Just let it go. And just to come into the present. Okay, so as we mentioned, it's our posture that is the foundation. And as we learn more about the practice of Tantra, we learn more about the importance of this posture. The fact that this subtle body, we haven't yet totally tapped into, but needs to have a straight spine, the central channel, the subtle central channel that runs through the center of the body, sort of closer to the back, gets kinked and, so as much as possible, if we can hold that. And when we first start to practice sitting practice, or if we don't sit for long periods of time, it's often more difficult to stay. It takes a while for us to develop our back muscles to be able to hold us without pain. Initially, the knees, the back, we have difficulty. And so pain comes. That's natural. And it's just something that eventually we work our way through. But it's not to be a marathon pain experiencer. So we need to be realistic about what our capacity is. And for us to fight with pain, then that's not useful to settling the mind. So short sessions, if you're sitting cross-legged, short sessions to begin with is useful. And sitting on a chair, there's nothing wrong with sitting on a chair. The important thing is to have the feet flat on the floor so that you're not leaning back against the chair. So you're sitting upright. When you're in the process of meditation, certainly if we are sitting together and listening to teachings, if there's a backrest, certainly take advantage of that, unless you are wanting to really stay very centered in your meditation. So that being said, let's settle into our meditation seat. Sitting fully, taking a good seat, really grounding in the seat. We often live in our head. We need to get out of the head and into the heart and down to the ground and be stable right here. So to abide in a state of relaxation, stillness, and vigilance, facilitating the relaxation. Let's scan the body, beginning at the crown, and letting the warm light of love float down, nurturing, softening, releasing any place you have tension or discomfort. Let it release. The brow, the jaw. Notice what it feels like when all the facial muscles are relaxed. And into your neck, and across your shoulders. letting your shoulders be level, evenly relaxed as you float down your arms. Your hands resting gently in your lap. Sometimes a deep breath here is good as you come back to float down your torso. Just a big letting go. Your upper back and your chest. Your mid back. All the way to your sit bones. Your glutes are soft. Your belly is soft. Nothing to hold in. Down your legs. All the way to the tips of your toes. Let every cell of your body release as you remain upright, relaxed, and still. Feel your body on the seat. Allow yourself to be stable. Feel a sense of safety. To be able to completely let go. As you experience the breath in the body. Not ruminating over the past. Not anticipating the future. And not analyzing the present. Simply attending to the breath as the body breathes. Noticing the harmony between stillness and movement. And then we finally point our awareness to the tip of the nose, to the sensation right there, like a sentry at the gate. Experiencing the sensation as the wind moves in and out. And knowing when the breath turns. And if the mind is relatively stable and you feel comfortable doing so, begin to release your attention on the breath and turn to the space in which the breath flows. Gradually expanding awareness out. Within this space-like nature of mind, all things appear. They abide and they dissolve without any force, without any impedance. Resting in clear awareness. We have a taste of this pure nature of mind. without manipulating anything, just resting evenly in momentary present awareness. Being that awareness. Without one who is resting in awareness, without anything to put into resting. Being that awareness. You might ask yourself, who or what is awareing? Is it the body? Is it the mind? Is it something special that is separate from these two? Does it feel like there's something in charge, directing? Someone thinking, feeling, hearing? Where is that one? If we look, we don't seem to find it anywhere. We're empty of existing in that way. As we rest in this open awareness, a non-finding of anyone awareing, emptiness of self appears. Oh, there's nobody home. There is freedom in that. In his guide to the middle way, Master Chandrakirti says, seeing with awareness that all afflictions, all great suffering, and all faults, all failure to do the right thing, arise from the view of the transitory collections. Recognizing the self as its object, yogis strive to negate the self. Looking in this way and finding no one home, we rest there in this vast, luminous awareness. And then out of compassion, come back into this bodhisattva's body. setting our intention to use our time together and after to be of the greatest benefit to actualize perfect enlightenment. May it be so. Okay. Do we have any questions, comments, statements of fact, fancy, anything relevant anyone wishes to say?
Go ahead, Skylar.
I was just wondering if the ordinary appearance is the same as the inherent existence.
When you say ordinary appearance, what do you mean?
Like when you were referring to in the tantric teachings, we're supposed to be kind of identifying this ordinary appearance and transforming that ordinary appearance into the deity.
Right.
Is that the same as kind of like in the sutra teachings, they're having us try to identify the inherent existence and then kind of negating that?
Yes, it would be like that. You know, we have an idea of who we think we are.
Yeah. Okay.
Like this, we're like this, we're like this. And in fact, Tantra cuts right through that like a hot knife through butter.
Okay. Yeah. Because in my mind, the inherent existence, when we're trying to find that, to me, like I get stuck in this idea that eventually we're not ever going to exist. But then when I look at the ordinary appearance, I'm like, okay, no, it's just the ordinary blah, like low self-esteem individual that I, kind of relate to every once in a while is what we're trying to transform. And it's not like just cutting out of existence, but transforming into something more pure, I guess, in a way.
This is a good point. We want to exist. We want to find someone who's doing this, who's the, I call it the Oz, our very own Oz, the puppeteer. We want that one because that gives us a sense of stability, a sense of permanence. But that one doesn't exist. We don't exist that way. We don't exist that way. And like you say, Skylar, it is we want to though. And we feel like we do. We want this, we long for a sense of permanence. And there's fear that arises when we think we don't exist. And we don't exist in the way that we think we do, but we do exist, you see, as a stream of consciousness upon which all these many, many seeds have been planted. We exist as a dependent arising, and we exist conventionally as parts and labels. We do exist conventionally. If we didn't exist, then, we could step in front of a car. There wouldn't be any problem. But we do have, conventionally, we exist of all these changing parts. It's like, it's negating, what we're negating is a solid, concrete, permanent, self-existent one that comes from its own side, that's somewhere in there. When you do a meditation where you're looking for the I, where you're actually looking for that one that feels like we exist. If there's a good time to do this, if you have something upsetting that happens to you, somebody, calls you out, and somebody badmouths you, and somebody's talking smack about you, and you have a sense of, wait a minute, that's not who I am. So you have a sense in your gut that you're something. And if you go looking for that thing, then especially when you've been upset for some reason. This is the time they say first you have to find the gakja, Gakja. That's the one that doesn't exist that we think exists. And I think of it, I think, oh, it's gotcha. Gotcha, hooked you again. But we think we exist in that way, in some solid, concrete, permanent way. And we want to exist that way. That's why it's so difficult to overcome it without really looking deeply and then having the direct experience. You know, intellectually, we can look and we can find and we can see. Intellectually, we know it's true. And we do have small tastes of that empty nature in our meditation. And at some point in time, when you're in the process of doing that looking, as Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche says, look, when the farmer loses his cow, he goes into the barn and the cow is missing. He doesn't just walk around the barnyard looking for the cow. You know, he goes out into the fields and over the hills, and he goes everywhere looking for the cow. And the same is true when we're looking for the self, because part of us wants to believe that it's there. We don't want to look hard enough to find that it doesn't exist. But that not existing, that self, that's like a, you know, we feel it's like we're like a bull with a ring in his nose, you know, being led around by this permanent self, and we're following their dictates. And when you see emptiness directly, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that that one doesn't exist. But it doesn't mean that you don't exist. You don't exist. You exist as an agent of kindness. You exist as a wise, true being that can manifest eventually in any form to suit varied disciples. This is the enlightened capacity. So that we have to get beyond this clinging to this idea that there's something concrete. And because it's enticing to have that one, it feels safe to have that one. Like, where will I be if I'm not this self, this inherent self? Where am I? So it's to probe and to look at, but it is, like you say, it's the ordinary grasping onto this ordinary self, something beyond that, not just body, mind, but something beyond that. You know, we think there's something more than that, something very special. And when you go looking, you know, say, oh yeah, well, I can see I'm not my body, right? I can see I'm not my body because we have, you know, where in the body would it be? You know, we amputate and we're still here. And even when somebody dies, you go to visit John, who's been very ill, and you knock on the door and you say, I came to see John. And they say, oh no, John's gone. He died this morning. Even though his body's right there, John's gone. So we know John's not in the body. And so we can say, oh yeah, okay, you get that. That's an aha. I'm not this body. Okay. So then where am I? Well, obvious. It's obvious, isn't it? I'm my mind. So then you look, okay, which aspect of the mind am I? Which one? Am I this thought or that thought or this one? So you begin to see, wow, wait a minute. The mind is, by definition, merely clear and knowing. So is that what I am? Okay, merely clear awareness, pure, clear awareness. And I would debate with myself sometimes because I would say, well, you know, maybe science just hasn't found it. It really is in the body. You know, maybe it's in the amygdala, you know, or somewhere, you know, somewhere in the brain, somewhere hidden away. They just haven't found it yet. And then you come back to the fact that the brain dies when the body dies. So it's a matter of investigation. It's really looking, taking the time, being a scientist. And at some point in time, you realize, you have that realization. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt. And even when individuals see emptiness directly, when they come out of that meditation, things still appear to be self-existent. They still appear to exist the way they appear. They seem to exist the way they appear. But there's a crack, there's a little more acceptance into the fact that it's just an appearance. It appears solid, but there's questioning. That bumper sticker that was very popular for a while, question reality. I always thought, cool. Yeah, we should question reality, because typically our reality is false. So it's very exciting. Is that good? Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any other questions? Comments?
I have a question / comment. So I play a lot of tennis. So one of the techniques is to positively project that you're better than you are. So I imagine I'm Serena Williams, and it gives me confidence and focus, and I imagine winning, and it works. But I have a tendency with that, as with all things, to take it too far and forget that I'm not actually the best tennis player in history. And I've nearly knocked my own teeth out trying to do something that's way above my skill level. And so I have, I wonder, when I think about attachment, I can tell myself that I know the difference between, pleasure and happiness, and I can devour pleasure without thinking it's happiness. But I think maybe I'm just having this workaround so I can just do what I want. And then when it is around aversion, if it's somebody in traffic, I don't mind to, offer them the victory, or even, my mom with her opinions of my hair, I can offer the victory. That there are, whether it's somebody in a public space or somebody in my own life that I feel is actually engaging in harmful actions, I don't have the skill to do that without being unkind to myself. And so I wonder if you have some advice for how to simultaneously hold the aspiration and like kindly acknowledge where I actually am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you said it very well. Just like that. You kindly acknowledge that we're a work in progress, but we do the best we can. It's like Master Shanti Davis said, and it's in the Serenity Prayer.
Yeah.
So we change what we can, we accept what we can't, and we pray for the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm.
So that's primarily it. I think, more than anything, it's beginning to hold things gently. You see, to recognize that we can enjoy very much, but we're just holding it gently. We've got the hand open instead of like this. Typically, we don't analyze when somebody hands us something that has the appearance of deliciousness. We don't analyze, is this empty of existing from its own side? Typically we don't do that. But if we find ourselves wishing to have a second or a third or a fourth piece, we find ourselves sad that it's gone now, then we have to take a look at where we're grasping. How is it that we're doing that? So it's a matter of really retraining when these mindsets arise and just looking at it intelligently based on what we know to be true. Through lenses of compassion and wisdom, we can generally make the right choice. Generally, we can. So if we are in tantric practice holding ourselves as something, the best tennis player in the world, we still want to be sure that we're not knocking our teeth out, right? So it's looking at both aspects at the same time, recognizing conventional and ultimate reality exist simultaneously, and we have to be aware of both. Does that make sense? Okay.
It does. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Yeah. Okay, shall we go on? All right. So we're talking about the prerequisites for practicing Tantra. That it would be a mistake to jump into Tantra without the foundation. And in many ways, Heather, it would be just like that. It would be just like knocking your front teeth out because you believed that you were something that you weren't, you know? So in the same way, people who don't have a foundation of the sutra path, then they get involved in thinking that they're the deity and that they can, in fact, indulge in anything, do anything, and transform it. They think they can do that, you know, but that's a mistake, you know, and they end up harming themselves and others. So thinking like that. So the foundation, as Lama said, are the three principal aspects of the path, you know, the prerequisite. And it's one of the reasons why I like to engage in Lama Tsongkhapa's Guru Yoga, because he wrote that short text to the three principal aspects of the path. If you haven't read it, if you don't know it, I highly recommend. Maybe I'll put it in the chat tomorrow so you can download it if you would like it. It was one thing that Lama Zopa Rinpoche told me would be useful to say every day when I went to see him many, many years ago. So Lama Tsongkhapa says that to develop renunciation, we first recognize that we have this precious human life, this one, and we're going to lose it. You know, he says life is like as fleeting as the bubbles in the sea froth of a wave. So those, if we think about the precious life and the fact that we're going to lose it, then that reverses the clinging to this life. Oh, this life, you know, just the happiness of this life. I need this life. Happiness now. And then on top of that, thinking about karma and the suffering of samsara in general. Those are the four thoughts that turn the mind to Dharma practice. Those are the four thoughts that we cultivate to develop this definite emergence, because we see how karma works and we see the various suffering possibilities of the results of our actions. So instead of just being satisfied with happiness of this life, we want to be free altogether from the circle of suffering. We want to step off that treadmill, that mouse wheel, what they call that, whatever. Anyway, that one, we want to get off that. So that leads to liberation, individual liberation. And then on top of that, he says, even if you meditate on the determination to be free, without bodhicitta, we can't achieve perfect enlightenment. So he says, how do you cultivate this bodhicitta? He suggests that you think of all sentient beings as caught in the iron net of self-grasping egoism, completely enveloped in the darkness of ignorance, born and reborn in boundless cyclic existence, unceasingly tormented by the three miseries: suffering of suffering, suffering of change, all-pervasive suffering. By thinking of all mother sentient beings in this condition, generate the supreme altruistic aspiration. So renunciation, bodhicitta, and then he says, even if you meditate on the determination to be free and the mind of enlightenment, bodhicitta, without the wisdom, realizing the final nature, how things actually exist, you cannot cut the root of cyclic existence. Therefore, strive to realize dependent arising. How things arise dependent upon causes and conditions. So then this is this circle of dependent arising, the 12 links of dependent arising, how that works. That's really, it's fascinating when you look at the 12 links of dependent arising, because it's not just life to life. It's not just circling life to life, but it's circling throughout every moment how we do that, how we do that. It's very fascinating, and it all comes from ignorance. It comes from the very first link is the root of ignorance. It's holding reality, self and phenomena as being self-existent, concrete, true. That's the root of circling in samsara. Holding that is true, because when you hold that as true, then you plant seeds of suffering. So through ignorance, we create actions. So it's karma. We plant actions that create seeds on the consciousness, that plant seeds on the consciousness, and they ripen in name and form. So labeling on an object. The 6 sense doors come in contact. The contact creates a feeling, positive, negative, or neutral. We crave more of the positive, less of the negative, and we grow that craving into becoming. So we become the one who has that. And when we crave that becoming at the time of death, it propels us into another rebirth, and we go through aging and death again, and we go through that cycle, the 12 links. It's very fascinating. And the thing is, we can cut the link as soon as we recognize, oh, the craving. Aha, I want to cut it before I grasp it, and then become that. You see? So it's okay to enjoy it. It's the ignorant grasping that is the problem. And it's particularly lethal at the death time, because it's going to propel us into the next rebirth. So it's something good to study. There's a very good book called Unbinding by a Westerner. She wrote Grace in Aging. Her name's not coming. Anyway, it's Unbinding, and it's really about the 12 links. And it's a secular book. She talks about grace, but she talks about grace in a way of being more, I would say maybe more Christian kind of idea of God being everywhere. Or anyway, I don't want to put words into it. It's been a while since I've read it, but I found it really quite amazing in terms of the way the mechanics of these 12 links, how it is that we create this. Yeah. Because when we recognize it and when we see we can stop it, we can cut that link right there. Aha, okay, stepped off that one. We can do that. Then we can see how training, particularly we'll see as we go through here, if I don't talk anymore, I'm going to stop this. We can see that at the death time, a tantric practitioner practices dying. That's a very important aspect of the tantric practice. It's preparing for death. I mean, it's the only thing that's definite, isn't it? Right? It's death. It's coming to all of us. Coming soon to a theater near you. I already bought the ticket, I'm pretty sure. Okay, so anyway, enough of that. So let's come back. So these three, the first two, we went through the renunciation, we went through cultivating equanimity so that we can appreciate fully that every single being without exception wants and deserves happiness and freedom from suffering. So based on this equanimity, we cultivate this universal love and compassion. And eventually we realize fully bodhicitta. We gain that realization, full bodhicitta. Our heart always open, totally dedicated to the ultimate benefit of all. So as a prerequisite for the successful practice of Tantra, Lama says, and not just Lama, but bodhicitta is essential, absolutely necessary. We have to get out of the self, because absolutely, you know, when we're only concerned about our own liberation, our own self, we are actually, solidifying this self that doesn't exist. You know, we're not cutting that. As soon as we open up our heart to be open to all beings, we soften our own self-cherishing aspect. So it's amazing. And there are many tantric deities, and the purpose of each one is to develop and expand this dedicated heart of bodhicitta. It's not just the prerequisite of Tantra, it's the important fruit. So really, really, really important. Renunciation, renunciation loosens our habitual grasping and our reliance on external things for satisfaction. While bodhicitta opposes the self-cherishing attitude where we focus on our own welfare and neglect others. And the third prerequisite for tantric practice is the cultivation of the correct view, the wisdom that clearly realizes the actual way that we ourselves and phenomena exist. So realizing the correct view isn't really something mysterious. You know, it's available anywhere, everywhere, all the time. Whenever we fix on the idea that we exist in a certain way, we're hallucinating. Lama was always using hallucination. You know, you're taking a trip, you're hallucinating. And the fact is that we are changing all the time, but we feel we have some sort of permanent, unchanging nature. And this is a hallucination. And on top of that, our view of the external world is just as deluded. So every sensory object that appears to us seems to exist from its own side as something concrete and self-contained, existing just as we perceive them. And this is a hallucination. It takes time and training and clear-minded investigation to cut through this deeply ingrained wrong view. But we can begin the process right now by merely being a bit skeptical about that. Whatever's appearing to the mind, a bit skeptical. So we can begin that. So it's good to be a bit suspicious of what our senses and our ordinary conceptions are, what they're telling us. And it's helpful to think of them as dream experiences. Lama used to say, my dream impermanent plans. So it's like waking from a dream. You know, where are all the dream people? Where did they come from? And where did they go? While we were sleeping, they seemed real and we were interacting with them and we were afraid of them or we wanted them. You know, we have these experiences with them. But waking, we realized they were just a projection of our dreaming mind. So in a very similar way, everything we experience while we're awake, including our strong sense of who we think we are, is empty of true existence. It is like a dream. Appearances are manifestations of our ordinary consciousness. They're merely apprehended or labeled by our superstitious mind. It's interesting when you start probing that. You start probing that. You start looking at that. You know, it's people, you think about people who don't share your language. You know, they don't label it like that. Or, you know, a different realm, you know, is this a swimming pool? You know? So it's interesting to look at it, to just think about it, test it, taste it, see how it works. Our basic problem is not that things appear to be self-existent. They do appear to be self-existent, but we accept the appearance as true. We accept it as, yes, that is the way it is. Yes. And then we'll argue it when somebody has a different opinion. Yeah. So this habit is not a newly learned philosophical view. We were born with this habit, and it's not easy to overcome. So we have to look, we have to probe, we have to see. So if the ordinary appearances are merely labeled by our superstitious mind, how do we uproot our clinging to these appearances? We see them as true. First, we just begin intellectually by recognizing that our ordinary view is deluded. Lama Zopa Rinpoche often will say things like merely labeled by the mind. He told me once as I was going into town, he says, you're driving the car merely labeled by the mind, down the road merely labeled by the mind, to the store merely labeled by the mind, to get the bread merely labeled by the mind, to bring home to feed the family merely labeled by the mind. So you keep merely labeled by the mind until it's like, really? Oh dear. Anyway, it's a thought. It's powerful to do that. To spend a day merely labeled by the mind. Everything that the mind labels. Oh, it's merely labeled. Okay. So, but the things outside of ourselves are also empty of solid reality. They're empty of what we project onto them. And it's true of our inner self as well. If we take the trouble to look, to search for a supposedly concrete I or me, we see we can't find it anywhere. Can't be found. No part of the body is me. No part of the mind is me. None of the countless thoughts or feelings or emotions are the real me. This solid sense of self is not to be found. Somewhere outside the body, somewhere in the mind. Nope. But we still hold on tightly as if it's there. So this fundamental source of all our problems, that's it. That fundamental source, the root. So sometimes it's called ego grasping. So I mentioned before, you need a strong sense of self, a strong sense of divine pride, so to speak, in your goodness in order to practice Tantra, but not ego grasping self. It's been with us intuitively since birth. And it actually is what propelled us to take the birth we did in the first place. So we carry around with us a certain deeply ingrained, preconceived, concrete notion about ourselves, which has nothing to do with reality. It's completely mistaken. So just like everything else, it's merely a designation, designated by conceptual thought. So to reach beyond our false concepts and projections, we have to first eliminate all the wrong ideas about ourselves. We have to identify the root of all of our difficulties by looking deeply into our own mind for its characteristics and misconceptions, recognizing them. The main reason why we continue to experience these various miseries of cyclic existence, repeatedly moving from one unsatisfactory condition to another, is our inability to recognize where the problems are coming from. We can't banish our habitual concrete view of ego immediately. You can't just say, doesn't exist, gone. No, it takes time. But we can begin to loosen it, to loosen our tight grip on it, simply by questioning reality. One Lama once said that there is a saying in Tibetan Buddhism, maybe in Buddhism in general, that merely questioning reality tears a hole in the fabric of samsara. Just to question. Because ordinarily, we believe in what we see, and then we act accordingly. But if we question it, then we may also question the next act that follows. Which is going to be the right one? Which is going to be the one that is going to be most beneficial? So we react based on what's arising in the mind. But if we question what's arising in the mind and understand that what's arising in the mind arises from habit. Why do some people have an angry mind? because they've entertained anger in the past. It's so easy to see it outside ourselves. But when you shine the flashlight on the self, it's more difficult to watch our own foibles. So ordinarily, we believe whatever our dualistic conceptions conjure up. And it's attractive to chase it or run away from it. So without giving a thought of whether it's truly existent or not. Without thinking. Just saying, oh, this is a reflection of my mind. And then checking, asking, why? Why is that coming up like that now? Is that true? So if we don't question, we are just continuously led from one unsatisfactory situation to another. But it's possible to let go of these ignorant beliefs. And the moment we start losing our concrete conceptions, loosening them, we will begin to experience a taste of freedom. Now, phenomena do exist. It's just that their apparent, concrete, independent manner of existence is mistaken and has to be rejected. So like a rainbow, we see the rainbow. Ah, so beautiful. It looks like this, has these colors, but it's arising out of water droplets and sunlight and our vantage point of observation. But we feel like we could just reach out and touch it. We could drive toward it, but we never catch it. So like that, all existing phenomena are mere appearances to the mind. They don't have any concrete self-existence. They come into being from an interplay of causes and conditions. They arise, they abide, and they disappear, all while constantly changing. This is the thing to remember. Everything is constantly changing. And this is true of ourselves as well. This emptiness, shunyata, lacking even an atom of self-existence, is the ultimate nature of everything that exists. Shakyamuni Buddha set forth these teachings, and they're clarified by Nagarjuna, the great Indian master or philosopher, known as the middle way analysis. It avoids the extremes of permanent existence or non-existence, eternalism or nihilism. According to Nagarjuna, we have mistaken ordinary concepts because we habitually superimpose qualities of concreteness, independence, and self-existence on objects, which they in fact lack. So it's our ordinary ignorant view of reality. It's superstitious and dualistic. But things do exist, so we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but not in a concrete way that we habitually suppose. And the challenge is cultivating the correct view. It's not denying valid interdependent existence. Lama Yeshe says, remember that if we just say this has many parts, it was put together by people in a factory, then it was shipped to market to be sold, then I bought it, and now I'm using it. So we see that it's something that came together from causes that depend on many things for its existence and its function. And it functions like this for now. But on top of that, we put more. Often we put more things on that. Like, oh, yes, this is a special cup because this was my grandmother's cup. This one. This is mine. And it functions, but it's merely labeled. But as soon as we loosen that idea that this is my cup, my special cup, and then we see somebody else using it, we can laugh at ourselves, really. We can look at it and we can laugh at ourselves. because it's really so silly. If we can see that things come together because of causes, and they depend on many things to exist and to continue to be and to function, and it's just for now. So this is a comfortable and direct approach. And we can see why the masters of the past have claimed that interdependence or dependent arising is the king of logical reasoning. And as Nagarjuna said, there's no exceptions to the assertion that all things lack true existence. And I mentioned before what Lama Tsongkhapa said, even if you meditate on renunciation and bodhicitta, without realizing the true nature, how things actually exist, you can't cut the root of cyclic existence. So we should remain a bit loose, a bit skeptical. And training in this way will be able to enter an experience of non-duality in which all confusion ultimately subsides. Renunciation, bodhicitta, and the correct view of emptiness are the three prerequisites for the practice of Tantra. And an approximate understanding for us to begin is good enough, as Lama said. He said, it's enough for us to relax our ordinary sense of ego identification somewhat to question reality. We can train in this penetrative awareness and cultivate a direct perception of the actual way things exist. And it's a training that goes in stages. The thing to remember is, in order for us to actually be here together in this room, to have this precious human life, what are the three causes of a precious human life? Or is it two? It's pure morality and the rest, and pure prayer. It's those two. So it's all the six perfections and pure prayer. So that got us in this room. We've obviously done this before. So we don't know where on the trajectory we are. As we sit down to meditate on emptiness, oftentimes we think, oh, that's so far away, I'll never get there. But you know what? Just like that. Just like that. If we practice, the practice manifests. So recognizing the unbelievable benefit of having this precious human life, having met these teachings, having the ability, the intellectual capacity, the leisure time to be able to actually investigate, to question reality. Oof, that's so rare. So you may, surprise yourself. I think it's a good idea. So it proceeds in stages. First, we have this intellectual and analytical methodology, right? We're checking and doing the analysis. And eventually, as we become more and more deeply absorbed in the experience of spaciousness, the ordinary concepts that crowd the mind begin to subside. They begin to subside like the sand in an hourglass. And we're left with nothing but a spacious, non-conceptual mind. Clear and empty. And we enter into the direct perception of emptiness, perfect seeing, clear awareness. It's not a blank-minded state, but it's one of clarity, wakefulness, vigilance, alertness, rejecting nothing, asserting nothing, and unencumbered consciousness. And when we're in this clean, clear state of mind, we're free to pay full attention to what we're doing and naturally do it well, rather than engaging in one act while thinking about another. How often is that done? Washing the dishes, are we thinking about washing the dishes? Are we thinking about what we're going to do after or what we did before? Really, if we look, it's very fascinating to see where your mind is. Just where is my mind? So by contemplating our stream of consciousness in meditation, really contemplating this, we do this, we sit in open awareness. By doing that, we can be led naturally to this spacious experience of non-duality. Observing our thoughts, we can see. We can see they arise. And we leave them alone. And maybe they have something to say, but we leave them alone. And eventually they just go. Naturally. They disappear by themselves without forcing them. And when we see that's true, then we can see in our regular everyday life, when we see that it's true when we sit on our cushion, that if we don't engage with a thought, a feeling, emotion, a sound, if we don't engage, it goes by the by. Same thing with, feelings. You might get an itch, just leave it. See what happens. Usually our intention is to go straight there and, get rid of that. But if we just leave it, it disappears on its own. So the point is to disengage, to become less engrossed in our hallucinations, less engrossed or distracted by any of the thoughts, no matter how delightful they may be. We're aware of the thoughts, but we're not engaging. We're mindful of this underlying clarity, being the sky in which the clouds pass. Just this clear, open awareness. Why? Why should we do that? So it's a way to break the spell of our hallucinations, that they're real. When you're in an airplane, from the ground, it looks like there's these amazing puffy clouds that you could lay down on. And when you're in the airplane and you're flying through those clouds, they're just like ephemeral. There's nothing solid at all about them. Like that. So they're just fleeting appearances arising in a clear mind. And then as we move ever closer, more and more and more, we begin to get the correct view of emptiness. Purity is always with us. No matter what mental afflictions we may be experiencing, it's only superficial. It's just a cloud, a temporary obscuration that will eventually pass, leaving us with this essentially clear nature of mind. Lama always said, there's nothing you cannot purify. Nothing. So when we contemplate our own consciousness with intense awareness, leaving aside all thoughts of good and bad, it automatically leads to the experience of non-duality. Like the sky, mind is clear. There's a verse in Lady of the Ganges, Master Talopa to Naropa. He says, take the sky, for instance. Devoid of any shape or color, its nature is immutable, unblemished by clouds of black or white. Just so, your own mind, devoid of any shape or color, can never be blemished by good or bad, black or white. These are analogies that are used over and over and over again, and they point and they give us an opportunity to try it on, to see how it works. You know, from an ultimate point of view, our consciousness always remains clear and pure. The non-dual characteristic of the mind is never damaged by dualistic concepts that arise within it. So again, Master Tilopa, he says, picture now a layer of fog that just dissipates into thin air without going anywhere, without staying anywhere. It is the same with all the layers of conceptions rising in our mind. Waves of thought just dissipate by seeing our own mind. So when we sit in this space of vast luminous awareness, waves of thought dissipate like fog in the sun. Mind, the conclusion that we all have the capacity to move from a confused, polluted state of ego conflict to the natural, clear state of pure consciousness itself. Mind is the seed of everything. Our restless mind continuously gives rise to new thoughts and ideas, and we tend to follow the lead wherever they go. It's not the thought that's the problem. It's the following, the chasing. Chasing this and chasing that. The point is to train not to follow them. That's it. Train not to follow them. We shouldn't believe that our thoughts are this or our thoughts are that they're absolutely true, what's arising. So we just need to learn to maintain a clear awareness while cutting off our habitual reaction to things. Leaving aside the reaction. There are times in and out of meditation when our dualistic confusion state subsides. We've all experienced it, this calm clarity or pureness of awareness. I think you have experienced. Is that peace of mind that we experience at such times, it's indescribable. And it's far superior to the fleeting pleasures of cherry pie or ice cream. The fleeting pleasures that we normally hunger after. This state of mind, this clear, calm purity. But it is indescribable. That's the problem. There are many descriptions and it's pointed to, but being able to describe it is difficult. Master Tilopa says we can talk about the clear light of our mind, but there are no words to express this quality of mind. Our moments of pure clarity can be cultivated and revisited again and again. We can do that. And when we recognize those moments of clarity, those moments of peace, to stay, just to be with it, to take in the good, then we expand that ability to be present in the true nature of reality, as opposed to the clouds that are passing through the clear sky. So we have that ability. If we rely on a valid, well-tested method like Tantra, eventually our awareness of the mind's fundamental clarity will become indestructible and will no longer be under the control of our dualistic superstitions. So this deep, peaceful clarity of our essential mind is in the nature of love. When we do our meditation, when we've done in the past, some of you, we have done this meditation of the Lama dissolving and the light being a light of love and expanding out and filling the whole universe, and then coming back. The experience that we have when we practice this meditation over and over again, and we make it real, is, it's so powerful to change our self-cherishing attitude. So powerful. Because this essential mind is in the nature of love. So what we're doing is expanding this fundamental pure nature, this calm atmosphere. This is where the disturbances of hatred and anger have no place. They can't live there. Mind can't hold two thoughts at one time. So as it grows, a sense of unity between ourselves and everything else arises. This oneness. Everything flows freely in a constant process of coming and going, growing and dying, arising and disappearing. So there's no distinction between your fundamental reality and the Lama's fundamental reality. One is not better than the other. With this fundamental principle of, Lama used to call it totality, the fundamental principle of non-duality. There is no Buddha, no God, no heaven, no hell. There's just being, the great peace. Lama calls it the great satisfaction. So Tantra has powerful methods for awakening the very subtlest level of mind, and for directing that blissful, subtle, clear light consciousness toward the spacious vision of non-duality. So even before we become highly skilled tantric practitioners, we can taste the freedom of the non-dual experience. So an easy technique is to look up into the sky in moments of confusion. And you see this vast sky. Without focusing on any object, you just gaze into space with intense awareness and let go of all ideas about yourself. And filled with this experience of the clarity of space, we naturally come to contemplate the clarity of our mind. If we can pause, if we can pause, the blueness of the sky, the rays of morning sunlight, the calm lake, they all offer these temporary moments of freedom from conceptuality. In a pause. In the pause. We're so busy, we rarely pause. When we contemplate the clarity of our consciousness, we automatically feel a sense of well-being, a sense of bliss. And this sense actually increases in strength with the sharpness of our concentration. Sometimes you might be sitting in just waves of pleasurable sensations because the mind is in pause. And when you have that kind of an experience, you have this sensation of wanting to come back to it from time to time. Meditation becomes a pleasant place to be instead of a slog. So because we feel this kind of pleasant sensation, then our concentration increases. And because our concentration increases, we feel fulfilled. And if we contemplate long enough, continuously upon the formless clarity of our mind, it's possible to stop perceiving forms, sounds, smells, and so on that come through the sense doors. They just subside. and one can sit in a state of really deep peace. And this opens the way for us to experience states of consciousness that are really presently unknown to us. This clear, pure, and blissful state of mind does exist within each one of us right now. It doesn't mean that we're already enlightened, but we have to work to be rid of hatred and greed and jealousy and all the other symptoms of the false ego that cover our mind, shroud our mind. Because beneath the gross levels where ignorance functions is our subtle, blissful, basic nature, the essential aspect of our human consciousness, with the potential to become fully awakened and everlastingly blissful. So we'll stop there. Everlastingly blissful. What do you think? You down with that? Oh my. Yeah, we will. So we'll dedicate. I think we'll go straight because we've gone all the way to the end. Let's go pull up our dedication and just go to Master Shantideva's somebody kindly put the 3 principal aspects of the path in the chat. How nice. Okay. So we'll go through these dedications now, but really to think that this rarity of being together like this, it's like finding diamonds all over the beach. All you have to do is pick them up now, and we'll put them in the jewelry box, to be used for our enlightenment. So please really be happy that we had this time together, that we meditated together, that we thought deeply about the nature of mind and how it is that we can become enlightened beings for the benefit of others. And let's dedicate. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, find an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms, the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, there too may I remain to dispel the misery of the world. By merit of this virtue, may I become Buddha and lead all beings, everyone, into that enlightened state. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow, and may that born not decline, but increase more and more. In the snowy mountain paradise, you're the source of all happiness and good. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the snowlands, teachings and beings, you clarify the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. Lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, may all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Great upholder of the moral way, bountiful bearer of everything good, accomplishing beautiful prayers, honoring the three precious jewels, sustaining and spreading Buddha's words, Kyabje Zopa Rinpoche, our precious Lama, please live long. And please also dedicate to all of our Holy Lama's lives, those teaching paths to enlightenment. May their long lives be fruitful. And anyone in our life who is unwell in the moment, may they be healed. Those who've passed away, may they have fortunate rebirths. And may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Great. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Great, great, great. Okay, well, maybe tomorrow is another day that we'll see one another.